Whoops. There's an OBS update. I think I'm up and running here. Let me close these down since we don't need them. What do we want to do today? What to do? We got a blank ZBrush. I got my sound working. We have a hole over here in my green screen. Let's move this over. There we go. Why I'm bright. That's okay. You don't need to see my face. Alrighty. Your stream seems to be working. Nice. Nice. Let's get some ZBrushing done. Because that's what we're here for, right? What kind of ZBrushing you guys want to do today? Hey, everybody. From Serbia. Good morning. Blank canvases are always tough, man. I guess one thing we could do is last week we did this no UV look dev for concept and illustration, so you can see that here on my YouTube channel. I'll go ahead and link that here. Actually, we'll just go ahead and play all. Yeah, there you go. So here's a whole playlist here, and then also on ArtStation there's this has a little bit more pictures. So you can play around with some of this stuff if you want. I don't know what kind of asset you want to do that with. We do have a bebop. I mean, I can look through our recording and streaming assets and see if there's anything that catches our eye here. Streaming. We got a Krampus I never started. Regular show. Jack-o'-lanterns. The genie. Little Shop of Horrors thing. I'm trying to think. We do have some Turtle Power stuff in here. I don't know, maybe that'd be fun. We also have a bunch of robots from very, very old live streams. That's actually where this guy's from. He's just a plain old robot mesh, which if you see in here, would that be under, I guess it'd be under recording, compositing, robot posed with, ooh, we could render that out if you want. Oh yeah, also we got the room that I made. This one's a little bit older. I'm not even sure. You know what? I think I did post that. I also made my room, my office here, because I got to put some sound acoustic dampener things in here, which of course you can tell by my audio I haven't installed yet. Hey. Environmental modeling? I don't know if I'd be the best at that. If you have anything in mind, I could give it a shot. But if we go in here to videos, here, oh boy, I've uploaded a lot of videos. There we go. So here's the office that I made, and I've just been adding more and more things to this. I can actually pull that up because I got to figure some stuff out. So if I go in here, oops, where's that dialog box? There it is. Load tool. And we're going to go down here to recording, room layout, back wall. So there's my office. Here's where I'm standing right now. And this is how I have it arranged. I actually popped one of these computers that I'm not using out. So I've got my computers all over here, and then I'm going to have enough room for these along the back wall here, and then back here I've got my 3D printer stuff up. I haven't put in my washing station yet, but there's my Anycubic Photon. Here's my tables where I got all my stuff. I'm contemplating getting one of these from Target. It's like a little plastic bin thing. So I went ahead and modeled that. And this is all, I mean, I do need to recalibrate this scene, I believe. So if I go through here and I go all the way up to the unit scale and go into solo mode here, turn on polyframe, hit F to frame this here. So here's my unit scale. I can hit W and then Y, and then I can just take my transpose line right along here. And then underneath preferences, transpose units, I can say the calibration distance is 1. So I'm going to say this is going to be 1 foot. And then I want 12 minor ticks. So each minor tick is going to be an inch. So now I've calibrated my transpose line to be 1 unit. So now, you know, this is one unit, and then here's 0.5 units, or if I go down halfway, which is 6 inches, again, it's still 0.5 units. So yeah, so now that I've got that all on there, it's very easy to go through here and, you know, take specs from, let's see, Alt, Solo, W, F to frame, Y, let's do Shift D. So if I get the specifications, I can go through here and make sure that this is, you know, however many inches, and you can always switch that to millimeters as well. I have a very similar scene set up for, let me see, utilities, unit helpers. So these ones I made in Fusion 360, so I know that this is 10 millimeter cube here. That's actually the floor there. So we turn on the floor here. There we go. There's our Z forward. Here's our 1 inch cube, and here's my print volume for the anycubic photon. So if I need to set my scene scale, I can just load this up, and then I can build to this scene scale. And if I need to calibrate, I can go through here, and this is a 10 millimeter cube. I'm gonna hit W and then Y, and we're just going to, oops, Y, so we have access to the, not Sculptures Pro, Gizmo. There we go. I'm gonna go from this corner to that corner, so he's gonna snap, and then I'm just gonna go in here to Preferences, and we're going to do, again, this is 1 unit, oops, and then we'll do 10 minor ticks. So now, actually this would be 10 units, right? And then 1 minor tick per. So now this is 10 millimeters, and each one of these is a millimeter here. So now I've set my transpose units for millimeters, and when I go to export this, this will actually be millimeters as well, because that's what I modeled it in and imported it in. And if I go down here to, because I imported these, if I go down here to geometry size, you're gonna see, this is set at, yeah, this bigger one, with the larger bounding box is set to 2, which is good. And then on export, it'll multiply it by whatever scale it needs to in order to be accurate for whatever I go out. Boy, that text is big. Is that a setting? Appearance. Compact mode, scale 150. There we go. Scale 100. That's a little small. Actually, that'll work. Yeah, Happy New Year. Let's see here. Thanks for thinking so, Ace. One question: what is the color AutoMask in ZBrush, and how is it working actually? What is the color AutoMask? So auto-masking. You talk about, so if I have like my standard brush here, the color AutoMask. Sorry, my brain is not quite there. We have masking here. Mask by color? Is that what you're talking about? Auto-masking. Auto-masking here with like brush auto-masking. Oh, mask by polygroup? Oh, color mask. Wow, let's find out, because I'm not really sure. Press color mask to use a model's poly painting as a mask while sculpting or painting. It's a very useful creating. What? I didn't even know that was there. Let's find out. I'm gonna go in here to a sphere. We're gonna say make Polymesh 3D. And let's go ahead and hit Control D to subdivide this a couple times. Then let's go over here, and I guess let's turn on Polypaint, a little paintbrush there. Let's go in here to red. Sorry, I'm a little bit dry. I don't want to be smacking on my microphone. Yeah, let's figure this out. So let's see what red painting does. So I'm gonna go through here. You know what? Let's do this. BPA, which is our paintbrush, and we're gonna paint some red on here. And let's see how this even handles. Like, let's throw a curveball at it. RGB, everybody's favorite. So now we have a standard brush, And if I use a standard brush, it's going to sculpt right through. Of course, we can turn on RGB and Z add, and we'll paint and sculpt at the same time. However, if we go down here and say color mask, and again, I'm holding down Control just to kind of see. Press color mask, automatic effect max will not be shown. It will change dynamically as the color of the model changes. Color mask intensity, color mask curve. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and turn off RGB for a standard brush. So as we're painting on, let's also turn off our lazy mouse here. Boom. So we're through here and we're sculpting. That's weird. Seems to kind of be masking even where it's not colored or where it's white. Interesting. So as we're sculpting along here, as soon as we hit that green, it does something. We're sculpting along here. As soon as it hits that blue, it does something. As soon as it hits the red, it does something. So if I go through here and I turn off colorize, I probably shouldn't be doing this just because I've never actually used this for anything. So I'm probably doing a really horrific demo. This might be a better Paul Gabriel or Joseph Drust question because of that. They might know something that I don't, because I literally never used this. It is interesting though. Oh yeah, got to turn on color mask though. So now we're using our clay brush. And you know what? Okay, let's see if it picks it up if I do this. Let's go in here to render. I'm going to fade opacity out. Just because I kind of want to see what it's doing. I guess not. I guess it needs to actually see. I think we had better luck with our standard brush. Okay, there we go. Okay, so clay brush not so much. Standard brush, even with fade opacity on, so you don't even have to see it, or you can kind of lessen that effect so you can kind of see what your brush is doing. Okay, it seems to be picking up all three colors. So let's go down here and let's change this curve a little bit. It's a little more intense. So let's reset that. Let's go ahead and flip it horizontally. And then it'll be, okay, so if you flip it horizontally, it'll go ahead and just mask it automatically where that color is. Now if I go across, so color, done, color, done, color, done. Ooh, look at that. So even red, green, and blue with that flipped mask curve will go ahead and mask it just inside those color areas and leave the rest of it alone. All right, interesting. Color mask intensity, let's crank that up to 100. Boy, that really wants to limit you there. If you take it to -100, now it kind of puts it at the opposite effect. So I wonder if, let's go ahead and flip this horizontally, color mask at -100. No, color mask at 100. Well, play around with these settings. It seems like 10's a good one. And if I wanted to flip this horizontally, I can make it maintain just kind of sculpt on the areas just that are colored. And then you can kind of play around with maybe this focal shift here. It's a bit weird. Let's bump it out. Cool. Let's see. Let me move this a little bit closer to my face. Is there a way to voxelize a solid volume in ZBrush with a lattice repeating structure? Yeah, you could use if I understand correctly. I don't know if voxelize, and at least in the ways that I've used it, I don't know if that's exactly right. But yeah, we can do that. Let's do a helix here. Let's go down here to initialize. Let's pop this little pin out of here. Oop, there we go. And now let's go ahead and simplify this here. Oh, stupid. Let me go over here to our fade opacity, get our lines back. So now I'm going to go over here and we're going to say coverage. No, yeah, we'll drop the coverage down a little bit, and then also the S-divide just to kind of give us a little bit more regular geometry. And then we're going to go in here to make Polymesh 3D. Let's do a quick group by normals with a little higher value in there, so it just picks up those end caps. And then we're just going to take this green part out and we'll say delete hidden. So now we can go over here to geometry, dynamic subdivision, turn that on, turn smooth down to 0, and then micropoly on. And then you could make your own micropoly. You can add any of these that you like, and so that you can make it any lattice mesh you really want. More information on this in particular, as far as micropoly is concerned, I think would be the updated ZBrush 2021 what's new. Up here there's 82 videos in there now because we had the 2021.5 update, so the last 15 videos or so are just 2021.5. But in here we have next simulation micropoly. Oh, there's 21 of them. Here we go. Micropoly versus micromesh. So probably around video 50 or 39 of them, and the numbered ones are probably your best bet. So any what's new stuff would be in here. So this is a lattice structure. I don't know, again, I don't know voxelize. It's not really voxelized that way. But another cool thing you can do is, let's go in here. Let's hit Y so we can rotate this. Let's go ahead and say subtool, append, grab a sphere, drop it down here. Let's go in here to our dynamics here, and let's say, let's calculate a collision volume. Let me raise my desk up a little bit. It's gonna be squeaky, sorry. Not too bad. So we got a collision volume here, and then now we can see, let's take that firmness up. So now when we run this simulation here with this one selected, we can drop that lattice around. Blah. There we go. But yeah, I'm not sure if I don't think I got that right, but that's something you could do. And make sure when you export your model from ZBrush Maya Blender 32 Max is the exact same size. Oftentimes the model is super small. The easiest way is, if you're working at a certain scale in another program, is just bring in a 1 unit exported from that program into ZBrush, and it'll do that automatically. It's exactly what I was talking about when I brought these in. I made these in Fusion 360, imported it in, and it went ahead and did those conversions for me. It keeps it at ZBrush scale here at 2, so it works nice. And then down here, it's going to add export scale. So when I export it, it's good to go. Now, if you start out in ZBrush, then ZBrush's unit scale might be, it's actually in millimeters, I think. So you can go in here to Z plugin scale master, and you can mess around with this subtool scale master. In fact, if you click this here, there's a video here on YouTube that'll Joseph Just will walk you all the way through it. There's actually some information through here where you can set your Z unit scale. Of course, that's a lot of work. So for me, it's easier just to say, whatever program you're working in, whatever scale units you have set up in that program, import it in, and then just calibrate your transpose line to that, and then you're good to go. You don't have to go through those extra steps. But if you want to, or you need to tweak it, Scale Master is where you're going to want to do that, I think. Cool. Thank you, Fish. Glad the videos helped. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Skip the auto-masking. I'll give it a shot. I don't know. It might be interesting. And you can also do, one thing I probably would do if I had very specific skin tones for like skin painting and stuff. Let me bring this guy in. What am I thinking of? This guy. Oof. Let me see. You know what? So he's got a bunch of different stuff on him. I'm going to go in here to Z plugin, and there's a little subtool master in here. I'm going to say fill with material only, all visible. Is that really skin shader 4? Current material. Yeah, I guess it is. Anyway, so if I wanted to mask by like a tone, I would go in here and I would say mask by Polypaint, and then I would just drag it on. It's like all the darker areas of my guy. I'll tap this, cancel. Skin here, mask by Polypaint, just drag off of here. So all of the kind of the darker scales on this guy I want to mask, and if the Polypaint's getting in the way, I could say hide colors. So now this is where I can go in here with this tolerance slider and be like, yeah, just mask out like just those darker scale areas. And then you can hit OK. And then if you don't want to see that, you can go in here to masking, turn off view mask. It's still there. Then you can go through here and like, I don't know, go into your inflate brush and inflate around it, or control tap to invert that, turn off view mask, and now you can go through here and just sculpt on those darker areas. Or BC brush contrast. You could use contrast on just those areas if you want to. Let's go ahead and turn off our Polypaint so we can see that a little bit better. So these are the new contrast brushes here. So you can go through and you can just add contrast to just the dark scaly areas here. That's contrast target. Contrast delta will let you kind of continue to build that up. But, and you can, again, control tap to invert that if you want to keep those the same. And then, again, I don't necessarily need to see the mask here, so that's what I'm going to go down here to mask, turn on view mask, and now I can run that contrast target on just those areas that aren't dark gray, or like I said, BC contrast delta, and that'll allow me to continue to build up that contrast in those areas, as well as I can go down here to deformation, and I can say contrast slider, and that'll just overall add contrast. And one of the funner things I did, I think, actually this would probably be a better one. Let me see, delete all. This one's set up for this specifically, just in case you missed it. God, where would I put that? Exports. That's just on my desktop. There it is. Actually, heck, let's render this guy out. I think that'd be a fun one. So here on the skin here, we're going to go down here to like subdivision level 4, and we're going to say brush cloth, okay, BCK cloth hook. So you can go through here and I can start making the wrinkles a little bit better. However, under dynamics, I have that firmness set to 6. Let's set that down to like 2. So now we can go through here and just kind of start, you know, beefing up these wrinkles a little bit. Of course, we're going to want to use that new ThickSkin over here. So we can turn that on and set that thickness radius, I don't know, like maybe to 6. So now it'll be like skin sliding over a bony structure underneath here. So just a really easy way to kind of go through here. And if you need to, you can also turn on expand. So while you're doing this, the wrinkles will actually start pushing out away. So if, the more I brush over this, the more you're going to see it's going to start like wrinkling up a lot. In this case, maybe not that useful, but just so you know it's there. Same thing for inflate, but that'll just kind of push along the surface normals. Expand will kind of push away from each other. So that way, this is an easy way to kind of go through here and give yourself those eye bag wrinkles that the contrast brush isn't going to give you. It's going to give you contrast for what's already there, but it's not going to necessarily just contrast something up. And this was super useful when we were messing around with this guy over here. Let's drop this down so we're in level 3 here. So, oops. Going through here, it's like, okay, yeah, I can do cloth all day long, but it's not gonna be that useful. But going down here and turning on that thick skin to limit the effect that's gonna have, now just allows me to kind of pull those wrinkles along here. And then of course we went to BPI, or pinch brush, and then down here to brush. And then we said elasticity, and then cranked up that elasticity. Nope. Yeah, I guess it is. Is it elasticity? Damn, I just forgot. Simulation iterations. Elasticity is something else. Whatever that was on. Simulation iteration is what I'm looking for. And then now we should be able to go through here. Actually, let's do this. Brush, reset current brush. Okay, simulation iterations. Here, there we go. So now using just the pinch brush, you can go horizontally or vertically depending on the cloth that you want. But again, it's going to limit that effect and allow you to very quickly just kind of go through here and cloth it up, or even down here you know, keeping this tube just limited enough. So as we go through here, probably pinch, not the best choice for that, but again, a cloth hook. You're kind of pulling that cloth along here. And if you want bigger wrinkles, you can go over here to your firmness and you can crank that firmness up in your dynamic, and or you can go over here and change your subdivision level so it's got less geometry to pull around. So that way you can kind of get bigger wrinkles, but again, it's going to limit it, so it's kind of those wrinkles pulling along that hose there. Anyway, hair cards, Fibermesh, sculpting hair but never turn out correct. Yeah, hair, everybody's favorite thing. Happens to be my least favorite thing. But not only can you do hair cards, you can also do hair cards with Fibermesh dynamic simulation if you wanted to. Here's hair card creation techniques, so check those out. It's not super stimulating, but good luck with that. Looking for a way to fill a solid with a repeating solid. Oh, okay, gotcha. I don't want to 3D print solid material, have the solid outer skin thickness. Gotcha. Yeah, you could do that with Booleans. So if you're going to 3D print something, you want it hollowed out. So this will kind of probably be some hoops to jump through. Let's go ahead and delete all these. I'm going to kind of clear out my ZBrush scene here. So, well, the other thing too, if you want to do, this will actually, wait, let's see if I can get it so you can see it. Dang. I'll update in a second. So if we go through here and we bring something in, let's see. Is there something we can do? Hold on just a second. Let's see if there's something I can just kind of pop in here. Think. Streaming. Okay, let's do this. Let's say load desktop. What am I looking for here? Apinator. There we go. So we have a gorilla skull. This will be easy enough. So I'm going to turn this off here. So I have a gorilla skull. This is a solid model, and if I'm going to 3D print this and I don't want these cavities in here, another thing I could do is just literally go through here. I think we don't have Dynamesh turned on, but let's go ahead and turn that on. Let's delete lower. Dynamesh at 360 seems to be fine. So I'm going to go through here and I can just seal these up with Inflate. So if I don't want these nasal cavities in there, just go ahead and put that in there. So there. Now we've got a model we want to 3D print and we want to hollow it out. So how you could hollow this out and add your own lattice structure, I can show you that in ZBrush, not that I've ever done it, and then I'll also show you how you can just do that in Chitubox. So we got this here and we want to hollow this out. So one way we could do this, let's go ahead and clean up some of that Dynamesh there. That was projection errors, it looks like. So we have this and we want to go through here. So I've got underneath Dynamesh, I have a create shell. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to drop in a cylinder. I guess let's hollow it. This looks like as good a spot as any. If I want to preview this first, I can go through here. I'm going to say split mass points. And we're just going to put this right below. I'm going to go ahead and delete everything else out of here so we can just kind of focus in on these two things. So I'm going to put this as subtractive and then turn on my live Boolean. So here's the live Boolean preview here. So let's go ahead and select this one and we can go ahead and scale this down. We want to make sure it pushes all the way in. We don't have just a geometry island hanging out there. So we're going to go ahead and scale this out like so. If you want to see what you're doing, just turn on your polyframe. So you can see, okay, there we go. Plenty to go through there. And then I'm just going to push this all the way in. So now we've got a cylinder going all the way through. Now at any point I can also go back to this gorilla skull, go back to our clay brush, and I can start building this in if I want to have just a nicer hole. So I can start sculpting while I have a Boolean there. So we can go ahead and clean this up. If I like this, or if we want to make this smoother, I can go through here. I can just do a crease dynamic, smooth that out a little bit, and I think we're good to go. So how we're going to do this is going to be subtractive mesh, and this has Dynamesh turned on. So if I go through here and I say merge down, Actually, before I did that, hold down Control Shift. Oh man, sorry. It's commandeered my hotkeys. Okay, Control Shift tap here. Okay, so when I hit D for dynamic, I want to make sure I hit apply so that actually applies that geometry. I'm going to move this one ahead. So again, this one is Dynameshed here, and this one is just a mesh hanging out. But if I make this subtractive and then say subtool merge down, which I have under Control E, now this is going to be a subtractive mesh, and then I can go over here and make a shell. I'm going to say a thickness of like 8, and then I can hit create shell. Give that a second, and then that should go ahead and hollow out my object. And it's going to give you 2 polygroups here, so you can say Control Shift tap this one. If you don't want to print out all those jagged edges here, you're going to want to probably do a Polish by Features open circle and smooth that out here. So now you have this with thickness, and then you know, and if you are going to print this in like a resin printer and you need a hole, and you want to do a hole in ZBrush, you're probably going to want to put a hole somewhere else so it doesn't create a vacuum in there. And also how you orient this is you're gonna want that resin to drip out, so you may want to orient it like this thusly, and then put another hole back here or somewhere else you're not going to see it, or maybe in these nasal cavities. So anyway, that's how you can kind of create a hole. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this off. Let's go back to our original. And I'm going to go back to where we just had our regular skull that we came in with. And the reason I'm going to do that, I think, is we need a way to use this as like a lattice structure. So as far as the lattice structure goes, you could do like would you do a plane? I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do this that would be controllable. Like one way you could do it is you could just go in here and you could append a plane 3D here. Let's go into solo mode so we can see it. Let's go ahead and rotate it back. And I'm going to go over here to geometry, reconstruct a couple times, say, let's go ahead and keep it on that. Go back in here to dynamic subdivisions, turn that on, smooth subdivisions down to 1, micropoly on, and then you can just make your own lattice structure here. Here's one that you can use. So this way, you could have this repeating lattice structure through here, and you would just use Booleans to Boolean out. But then this gets tricky. Let's do the not tricky way. Like doing that manually seems like a nightmare and a half. What you could also do is, let's go through here. And again, I'm certainly no expert at this. So this one's hollowed out. This one's not hollowed out. Let's go ahead and say Decimation Master, Z plugin, Decimation Master, preprocess current. We don't need to bring all this into our scene here. Let's go ahead and drop this down. So we can say like, okay, 10K polys at 10, enter, decimate. Oh, that's way too low. Let's say 100K polys, decimate current. That seems to be okay. So we'll go ahead and say export to our desktop. Let's go ahead and say this is an STL. Gorilla Skull 2 STL is fine. And then in here, see if I can just drop this on there. Oops, selected. Okay. Boing. So we'll go in here and we'll lock ratio, scale to fit. And then now we have our gorilla skull in here. Let's go ahead and widen this out just a bit. So now here's our gorilla slices here. Yoink. But what we want to do is go over here. We can dig holes, and we can also hollow this thing out. Boy. And obviously I haven't done this a whole lot. So here's our hollow. Wall thickness, however many millimeters you want. Let's say 2. Precision, enter, start. So I'll go ahead and hollow it out for us. Oh, and this is the one that has the nasal cavities too, so that's why those are hollowed out, but that's fine. So now if I go through here and we say, there you go. So now it's all hollow. And then when you go in here and you start doing your lattice supports, you can tell it, let's see, top, middle, bottom, raft, supply tire, say all. So as we pull these through, yeah, so you'll have interior lattice supports as well where it needs it if you're 3D printing. So, and then of course there's a ton of control you can do with lattice supports. You don't have to do just automatic, but that's how I would do it. As opposed to trying to go through there and like just do a generic lattice structure on the inside. Cool. Can't figure out how to use Dynamesh for things such as human feet. The toes really stick together. If I use polygroups, then the groups get separated from the main body. Yeah, so what you're going to want to do is not use Dynamesh past a certain point. Dynamesh is fine for, do we got a model with feet? Thank you, ZBrush. F here. Control N. Feet, please. No, he doesn't. Let's go and delete him out of here. So if you do have a model with feet, I got one we can pull in here, which would be Nixie Humanoid. So you're sculpting on this guy and you want to do Dynamesh. However, I do know that like fingers and feet can be a little bit tricky. So what I might consider doing is just being like, okay, I want to Dynamesh this guy, but I'm going to take the hands and fingers and go ahead and say, split those off. Then we'll just hit Control W and we'll just Dynamesh this however we deem necessary. And then for these, I'm just going to go through here and say close holes. And then let's take these interior ones, Control Shift Drag. We'll hit Control W, make those all one polygroup. I'm going to do a crease PG, which is going to crease those outer polygroups here. We'll do a quick mirror and weld to make sure those are the same on both sides. So now as I'm bringing these up, I mean, these are nice geometry, right? So I can go through here and I can hit Control D. Or if I don't want it to shrink that volume too much, go down here to Smooth Modifiers, hit Divide a couple times, and then turn that back on. So now when I go through here, and I can just manually go through and say, let's turn down my Z intensity there on my smooth. If you never watched one of my channels before, I have Smooth Stronger turned on by default for all my smooth brushes. So that's why I have to go up here and hold down Shift and turn that as the intensity. So now I can work on these. Now I have subdivision history on these. And I don't have to worry about my toes. However, I can always go back to the body here and I can say, you know what, it's Dynamesh, the body's Dynamesh, and I'm going through here and I'm using Dynamesh to its fullest extent, you know, because you're doing some crazy stuff out here and you're Dynameshing. BSH for snake hook brush. And if you want to, you can even like turn on Sculptors Pro and just go absolutely nuts with your Dynamesh. And as you're refining this, you're cranking that resolution up more and more. In fact, I might have the body split in multiple pieces here. So it's like, I want to work on the legs separately from the torso, separately from the head. Split hidden here, and then the arms here, because the arms can sometimes get in the way. And then the torso and the head. I might be working at a higher resolution because heads are funner. So we're going to go through here, crank up this resolution. So now, as we're going through here and we're, you know, doing whatever we want to the head, you know, it's at a, you know, the resolution's going to support, you know, whatever we're trying to do. It's like, oh, that's not enough. So I'm working on this one at 848. I'm working at the body at 296. And then eventually I'm going to work those all so that they're all about the same resolution. Then I'm working on the hands separately. And that way I don't have to worry about like the toes aren't going to close up on me because it's just geometry. And in fact, I can go through here. If I want to sculpt on one toe, I can maybe even go through here and turn on some auto masking. And if you saved your polygroups, which I didn't, I made it all one polygroup, but you can get them back and just hit W and Control drag out and then invert that, hit Control W. So now this will be its own polygroup here. But yeah, you can also go in here and then turn on auto masking. So brush, we were in here just a little bit ago, and you can say topological. So now while you're sculpting on this one, it won't bother this one, and this one won't bother that one. Or again, like I said, you can isolate it and then just do what you need to do. However, if you wanted to sew all of this up, that can get a little bit trickier because you are gonna want to sew. You know, these are going to be easy because you just Dynamesh them together. These ones a little bit trickier. So what I might consider doing is maybe just bridging between those two, Z-remeshing that result that's going to have your by bridging between these two. I mean, let's take this one here and we'll say, actually, let's do this to simplify. Sculptors Pro. So we're going to Frankenstein this guy back together here. So here's all his pieces here. We'll let's go ahead and Dynamesh these. They're all one solid piece. And then on the hands here, we can say, let's go ahead and delete lower, delete higher. We might be able to just let's turn this back to select rectangle. Invert that, delete hidden. And then on this over here, wherever these attach, I'm going to go through here and let's just do a trim curve. And then we'll get rid of this poly group here. And then down here, let's see, we might have to mirror and weld this. You know what, let's do slice. Good enough. Auto groups, mirror and weld. Grab both of these here. Sorry, there's a lot of junk along there, it looks like. Anyway, good enough. So now let's try doing like a BC bridge. Hold down Shift and grab that side, and then hold down Shift. Oh, you know what? These all need to be one mesh here, obviously. So here, and then here. So now you have geometry connecting both of these. I lost that poly group here. But anyway, you can go ahead and bridge these up, and then you have one solid mesh with all your toes built in, and then you can just Z-remesh this result. You can always use history to go through here, and like you can get all your details back after you Z-remesh just by going back to your point in history with everything together, or make sure you merge everything together. Once you finish this process, that would be your point in history. You would use your history recall on your new Z-remesh mesh, but I don't know why we lost that torso unless it, oh, you know why? Because it had a bunch of these poly groups on it. Buh. Anyway, it's not my world's favorite thing to do, but oops, looks like I'm behind. Let me see if I can get caught up here. Is there a way to use Z-cut in sculpting 3D? Z-cut, like Z-slicer? I'm not sure what Z-cut is. Like Booleans? Oh, good point, Ace. If that's I always assume like the really difficult answer is the right one. You may have to, like, if your fingers are sticking together here, or you dynamics like, oh, it's too much, then yeah, just crank up your resolution, and then it won't quite catch. So if you just, you know, crank up this resolution here, and this is why I tend to work on models at different resolutions. So if I hit Control, let's say we don't have a bunch of different things, we can go through and like slice the hand and slice the feet and slice the head, and then do a quick mirror and weld. So now I can just pop this off. We'll say split hidden, and then this one I can work at, you know, whatever resolution I want. And the hands here, let's go ahead and split those as well. I don't want to work at that resolution. I want to work at 668, and for the head, you know, maybe the same. And then for the feet, you know, and feet, oh, I forgot to put these things off in their own. Say split hidden. The feet too, I don't usually have like naked feet on most of my people, so it's usually okay to go through here and just say, it's time to mesh it together. But yeah, your mileage may vary on that one. There you go. So now I can kind of start working on this the appropriate resolutions. Oh, you can add, that's another good point here. So you can use live Booleans for the shell process. So if we go through here, we say, here's our original here. And let's go ahead and just re-Dynamesh this here. And then let's go ahead and delete these out of our scene. Say, wow, too many subtools. Delete, oops, sorry. Delete, delete, delete. So here's our skull here. We can duplicate this off, and I'm gonna go through here, and I guess, let's take this to subtractive, and we'll say live Boolean, and I'm going to say deflate this a bit. And then we're gonna go ahead and say append a cube, and we'll make this subtractive as well. We'll turn off polyframe so we can kind of see what this is doing. Oops. Cube. There we go. So this is using, so here's our Boolean mesh. So as I go through here and inflate and deflate, you can kind of see that skin pulling in. Now obviously you might have to do a little bit of cleanup as you're deflating. You're getting these kind of edges on here. It's getting a little bit raggedy, so you may have to go through here with maybe some Sculptris Pro and just kind of clean up some of these chewed edges. But this also does give you a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of control over that inside mesh. You have a Dynamesh here, so if you want it smoother, you're literally right now sculpting what that inside profile is going to be. So that's kind of neat. And then these areas here where it's like, oh, that's too thin to print, no problem. Just hold down Sculptris, use Sculptris Pro to kind of get rid of some of those. You may end up with more holes that you need to go through and patch up. But anyway, again, there's our skin thickness here. We've simplified it so it probably inflates and deflates a little bit better. And here, you can also, if you ever seen scale set up, you can literally go through here now and measure this distance. So again, if you let's say this here is, oh, we do have this set up for millimeters. So if we go through and we say, okay, 1, 2, 3, this is 3 millimeters. Oh, it's not enough. So go through here and you can inflate and deflate this more or less. So it's like, let's not do that much. So now this is 1, 2 millimeters. Let's see, I keep getting behind. Yes. But like I said before, hollowing and then adding your internal print structures, there's programs literally made to do just that. So that might be your best bet as well. Then you can also go back through here and make any adjustment changes you want. So let's go back here to our settings, and then underneath the hollow here, can you just change this on the fly? I don't actually do that much. Or did that just hollow out something that was already hollow? I really don't know. Or does it go back to the original? Oh, I think it may have. Yeah, I don't know if it hollow to hollow or not, but anyway, let's go ahead and close that on down. Cool. There's a way to use Cloth Dynamics to make a solid geo hair for 3D print, even if not using Dynamics, seeking a better method than sculpting it traditionally. Like kind of for solid hair, you can use a combination of Fibermesh to make solid hair, and then also use Dynamics. So this is going to see kind of sculpting this around. And you can actually use Micropoly if you wanted to as well. But as far as like Fibermesh and Dynamics, yeah. So these are the planes, and this is where we kind of go through, and not sure if this is, I don't know, the best way to do that. One thing I did do way back in the day, this is when 3D printing was not quite as robust as it is now. You can see this cowboy here has a very fine Fibermesh hair, but what I ended up doing for the 3D print was going through there and just replacing, I think I may have taken the Fibermesh for that and just made it a little bit more robust. So, oh man. Hold on. See if I can scale this up here. Yoink. Oh, my face is barely on there. Let me see. Do I have it locked? Video capture text. There I am. So this thing here, this little guy, you can see how thick, I'm mirrored, sorry, how thick these things are when they were printed. So they're just kind of like noodles on his face, but in order to get something solid printed, that's what I ended up doing. And that's pretty easy to do in, let's shrink this down here. I guess if you guys want to actually see my whole head, there we go. Let's go ahead and lock these back up. So back in here, we want to do turn off live Boolean. We have a gorilla skull. We're going to hit Y, Q, and then we're going to say mask lasso. Good enough. And the first thing we're going to do is go down here to display properties. Make sure double is turned off. If double is turned on, it's going to give you hair all the way through your model, which we don't want. And then, you know, let's clean this up a little bit. And then we're going to go over here to Fibermesh here. And by default, if you just hit preview, it'll give you very, very fine hair. Let's go in here to our modifiers. Let's change that gravity here so we don't have any gravity. And also, let's make it so that we don't have any hair through the eyeballs there. So now we can go through here and let's turn that twist down to 0 just so we can see what we're doing a little bit better. And then all you need to do is the max fibers need to go down, the coverage needs to go up. And in fact, if right now, let's take the base color white and the tip color white. So right now, if you go through here and BPR render it, it'll give you like, oh, those are my noodle hairs that I want. However, if you want to actually see and use those noodle hairs in real time, you're going to have to go down here and just be careful with this because it gets choppy. There's your BPR setting. So we're going to go through here. We're going to say the profile is going to be 4, which is going to be a full cube. And then now you can go through, you can even add segments. So if you wanted to kind of have more length, and then now we can go through here and we can do our gravity profile or just crank some gravity out. So it's kind of, there you go. So this is real geometry. And then when you hit BPR, it's actually going to add more stuff to it. BPR settings, root, subdivision. So if you don't want to do that, you can take that down to 0. And now when I hit BPR, it should render pretty fast. It is smoothing. Tip by ISO. There we go. So there's your noodles. As far as like getting this to print correctly, you'll have to do some work with like probably Dynamesh, and then also mix in a little bit of this transform draw draft analysis, because you're going to have a ton of undercuts in there. So I don't know, it's not super fun to clean up. If you want more information on draw draft analysis, I think that was ZBrush 2020. What's new? My profile here, ZBrush 2020. Oops. Control F. Draft, yeah, draw draft analysis, video 37. So that's, you can use that for 3D printing as well, or if you're going to do like mold making. Not that, I mean, you can 3D print depending on your printer, undercuts and holes and stuff like that too. But if you want to be extra careful, yeah, check that out. Anyway, if you're just joining us, some more resources for you. Here's my playlists, and then in my playlist here, all the ZBrush What's New stuff is in here. You can check that out. And then also it might be a little bit easier to navigate my ArtStation page. all the ZBrush 2020 what's new. There's demos and there's pictures and stuff like that, so you can check those out. Let me scroll up again. Let's see. And if I miss anybody, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what I am. My DNA is kind of all over the place. So I want to say like Croatia-ish. Pixelogic support. Yeah, that's probably your best bet. Put in a ticket. Are you using marbles for cloths? You directly sculpt with ZBrush? I don't limit myself. I use everything. But it is nice to have dynamics available in ZBrush for sure. Subdivision level 6 in sub HD. You're talking about HD sculpting. I don't ever do HD sculpting. I know Paul Gabry has an HD sculpting thing, Geometry HD. I never use that, but that's certainly a cool thing. Yep, that's what you're talking about. Export layers, animation blend shapes directly to UE4 as animations, like a limbic cache. Yeah, but I think you're going to have to go through a middleman. So speaking of, let's say that hair is totally rad, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it off for now. Let's go in here to Fibermesh. And then we're going to go in here to our, let's append a plane. And we'll go ahead and get rid of our Booleans here. I'll go ahead and rotate this. Yoink. So now, let's go through here. Let's turn on geometry, dynamic, smooth div of 2, and let's get rid of all these here. Dynamics, firmness of 2, floor collision on, recalculate, run. There we go. So we have our cloth here. So while we're doing that, I think what we can do, it's been a while since I've done this, but we can go in here to timeline show. We can go over here to layers and we can say record deformation animation. So if I run the simulation here and then turn it off, and we're going to say this on our desktop as animation MDD. Yes, we do. So now it'll snap back, and then we can say import our MDD, and that's just throwing our MDD out on our thing here. So now we have a layer that has that on there. Oh, you know what? I think I forgot to set something. Yeah. I think we need to go in here and say set. There we go. So we set a point in history. So now, let me see. Hold on. Here's the thing. If I ever do something and I never do it again, so here's ZBrush 2021, what's new? This is how we go and educate myself one more time. We're going to say animation cache, record, playback, and scrub deformation over time. This is going to walk you through all the steps that I have forgotten since I made this video. It's pretty neat. Give it a shot. Now, as far as I want to say, hold on, let me see if I can find it. Fingers crossed. Dang. Yeah, there is a way to do it, but there's a middle step you have to go through. And I'm trying to find the person that posted it. Sorry. I know the person who did it. It was Steve Tolkowski. Let me see if I can just do. Copy. See if I can just find his YouTube channel. Videos. cloth dynamic to Maya, dynamic cloth to Blender. I think between these three, you should have enough information to go from like Maya to, or Blender to UE4. So I'll go ahead and put that here. But I don't think it reads those MDD files natively, no. What was the name of the software that allows to slice a model along the height? That was Chitubox, C-H-I, that thing. There's a lot of things that'll do this same kind of thing, but this is just what I've been using lately for my 3D printing needs. Let's go ahead and scale this uniformly to fit. So yeah, this is something you can use to hollow out and build those supports and all that good stuff for your guy. Cool. Do you have to retopologize your mesh for print? No. Usually just Decimation Master. Now you want to be careful with Decimation Master because it will, if you have any kind of nasty geometry, if you have anything you need to clean up, like I'm sure there's some on here, but occasionally you'll have like geometry that kind of flips and folds over itself. If you don't go through there and clean those areas up, and sometimes cleaning those areas up is like we did earlier, just hold down Shift with Sculptris Pro and you can go through here and just kind of chew away any problem areas that you might have. But it will build that in, that kind of flipped and curled geometry that it gets kind of weird and gross. But other than that, no, just Decimation Master is fine. Maps type thing, real clay sculpting fill with uneven surface. So is there some brush to do that? Yeah, and you can use, that's one of the things too, is with that thick skin turned on, there's some brushes in here, right? I forget the name of it. Brush. God, it wasn't even that long ago. This is how long that time off was for my brain. I came back to work and I was like, wait, who am I? What am I doing? Thick skin clay. So here, you're going to see with thick skin off, it's just going to go crazy on your mesh. However, if you turn thick skin on and you limit, again, just limit that effect to say 7 units, now it'll kind of go through here and give you that. And of course, this is all 2021.5 new stuff here. So all of this can be found in that same playlist, ZBrush 2021, what's new, just scroll all the way down until you get to like the last 15 videos, thick skin. Here's all the thick skin. In fact, yeah, this video walks through a bunch of it. So you got real-time AO, which I always forget to talk about. Thick skin and wrinkle sliding, we went over. Hard surface with some of that, and then curves helper and all sorts of cool new stuff that you can do, contrast brushes and all that good stuff. So speaking of, let's go in here to render, preview AO. There we go. So we got real-time AO here. So let's go ahead and crank that thickness up a little bit. There we go. And so speaking of cloths, we go BC. How many points we have? We have too many. Actually, let's do this. Let's do a groom brush. So groom here. Let's go and turn off thick skin. So here it's like, whoa, that groom brush is going crazy. As soon as you limit that effect, this one isn't the greatest example, but you can see how you'll get a much different result as soon as you kind of limit that effect. So I think that actually started out as a groom brush. I talk about it. Let's say hair toss here. So here with that thick skin, using hair toss kind of gives you a cool clay brush effect. And then again, if you turn that thick skin off, it's just going nuts on your geometry. But you limit that effect, and you might get a cool result. Best approach to doing dreadlocks, probably Fibermesh. But a lot of that's going to be I mean, that's kind of what that video we were on previously. With the hair, it's got a good thumbnail, I think. Yeah, this one here. It's similar to this, but yeah, a lot of this is going to be the texture, like getting the root to tip texture and then giving it something, and also making it performant depending on what you're rendering it in, if you're doing real time. Reverse the order of the quick saves from recent to old. Oh, that'd be a good one. I really don't know off the top of my head. These are all hard questions. Give me some easy ones. I mean, if you want, so if you tap any of these, you're going to see, and I'll give you the location of the Z projects that it is saving. So you can go to that. So that'd be under Z data quick saves. And then you can just sort by date modified here. But of course you don't get the cool thumbnail. So I don't know how useful that is, but I'm not sure. Can we do in ZBrush what I have had to shrink wrap in Maya, where a tubular material sucks down to a tubular structure framework, purposes to replicate real world medical device. You can do that in ZBrush. Tubular material sucks down to tubular structural framework. Yeah. So if we go back, yeah. Let's do that, because that'd actually be a really cool effect. So we have a tube here, and let's go ahead and this is fine. This is fine. So let's hold down Control Shift, and you know, let's go. Let's do this. Let's say I don't know exactly what kind of tube I want, so I'm gonna say delete hidden. I'm just gonna zero mesh half, depth size down to 0, and just get some new geometry. And you can also turn on X symmetry. Oops, that's fine. And then we're gonna go through here, and let's say zero mesher, and let's do close convex hole. Let's go ahead and cap these off here. So, and you know what? Control W. And we can do like a crease polygroup, crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3, and we got our noodle. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this off, and let's go in here, and on this one let's do Shift D, and I'm going to take these little caps off of here, Control Shift, and we'll flip it around, delete hidden, and you know what? Let's do this. Let's say Q mesh polygroup all, hold down Shift, and we're just going to push along those surface normals to embed this a little bit. And let's go back to our dynamic, turn off smooth, turn micropoly on, and we'll go ahead and make this that lattice structure framework. So here's our mesh here. And if this is too much, you're like, I don't need that many. This is just, again, zero mesh half, and that'll give you fewer, and then turn dynamic back on, zero mesh half, and then it'll give you fewer. So there we go. Yeah, that seems fine. So let's go ahead and say dynamic apply, and then I'm going to go through here, and let's say let's do uncrease all, and then we'll run another crease tolerance. Is it grabbing everything? No, it should be okay. Let's hit D for dynamic. On this one, let's turn micropoly off here, smooth subdivision of 2. Let's do a weld, sorry. Weld distance up a little bit, there we go. Let's do Shift D, let's do uncrease all. Sorry, I'm just kind of playing around. So this is our structure framework here. Let's take that crease tolerance down maybe. Or up. There we go. All right. Sorry, crease level 2, smooth subdiv of 3. There's our lattice structure framework that we want. And you know, let's go ahead and apply those, so that's real geometry. So let's go back to our other mesh here. So we were playing around with these, and let's go ahead and, again, hold down. We can go ahead and get rid of these caps, we don't need those. So delete hidden. So we're going to say Q mesh polygroup all. We'll go ahead and pull this out. So now this will be our cloth, and this is our lattice structure framework underneath. So we can go through here, and we can say, you know, we can have gravity turned on, and we can say, let's go ahead and calculate that collision volume. So then when we run that simulation, actually our gravity is going to be, we're going to reset that because our floor is actually this way. So we want gravity to be this way. So we're going to say set direction. And so now when we run the simulation, gravity will pull down. Now we don't have a whole lot of resolution on here, obviously. So let's go ahead and hit Control D a couple times, and then we can run the simulation. There we go. So now this is very stretchy. So a couple ways you can fix that is you can crank the firmness up. But what I'm probably going to do is go down here to gravity strength and turn that down. So it just gives it a little bit more time to kind of simulate that. Now, this isn't shrink wrapping it to that. In order to do that, you're going to see we have the X, Y, and Z direction. We can go ahead and do a contract X, Y, and Z. Let's go and turn that amount down a bit. Let's turn gravity off. You run this simulation. Now it's going to shrink wrap that cloth to that underlying wire mesh. That should be okay. And then once you've done that, what I would probably, this is where you can go in here like BCK, brush cloth hook. You can go through here and you can kind of like, yeah, you're just kind of pulling that cloth along that underlying structure there. Let's go ahead and turn on dynamic for this and smooth subdiv preview just to see, so you can see a little bit of a smoother result. So now, while we're doing this, the contract is still going. So we've contracted it, we've shrink wrapped it to the underlying structure. However, you may want to go ahead and turn that off while we're using our brushes, while we're kind of going through here and just kind of pulling the stuff around. Just so it's not constantly contracting as you're doing this part here. There's another area too where you can go down here and you can limit the effect. Now we do have a collision volume in here, so it's kind of brushing up. You can see it's not going to go into that mesh, or at least it shouldn't. You see it's kind of, and if you go too fast it will, because it's just math, and if it's the math is happening, you don't have your simulation iteration turns up. That's another thing you do. Turn that up, and now when you do that, it'll run a lot of iterations. So it's going to make sure that it's maintaining. Again, all of this goes really in depth on the ZBrush 2021 What's New. So if you're just joining us, check that out. And also on my ArtStation page, ZBrush 2021 What's New. Both of those are going to have a lot more information for you as far as how the dynamic simulations work. But in a nutshell, that's how that's going to work. Also, again, turning on that thick skin and limiting that effect while you have a collision volume here is another way you can do that. Or at this point, if you're not going to be going in like really messing around with that collision volume, you can even turn that off with this thick skin, because it's going to just literally just limit it on the pre-existing volume of that mesh that you have. Now, if you do want to keep that on, I don't think it's going to hurt you at all, and that'll ensure that that underlying mesh here, let's go turn that floor off, is still colliding appropriately. But if you ever get in a weird position where it's like, oh, this collision volume's kind of in my way, thick skin should probably be good enough. But anyway, that's how you can like put a cloth over a metal tube there. Can I use thick skin option for digital clay illustration with the help of different types of alpha? Yeah, so in that demonstration here, when we were doing, I'm trying to think what would be a good example. I think maybe just even clay buildup. So here's clay buildup here, and we have thick skin off. So yeah, clay buildup, look, it's going nuts. As soon as we turn thick skin on, okay, it's going to limit it. You know, no matter what I do, that clay buildup is only going to go up 16 units and down 16 units. So it's almost like a layer brush functionality that we have now. But you know, you can also feel free to go through here and change out these alphas if you want to do like a little bit more of a rake brush. And again, it's going to limit it. So you can rake up and then hold down Alt and rake down. Yeah, so feel free to go in here and swap these out with any of your brushes, really. Even like brush clay, thick, like that thick skin clay we were working with. Like that's the result with just a this alpha. But if you go in here and you swap this out with something alpha 24, you get a little bit of texture in there with it. Alpha 34. Kind of does some crazy stuff. There's another cool thing too. If you go back down the thick skin of 0, you can wipe your slate clean. Actually, we stored thick skin after those points. But anything you haven't stored thick skin, it's keeping those vert positions for you. So you can do that. So if we go back here in our history here, and we turn off thick skin and turn it back on. So here's the values that are stored. We're going through here and we're doing thick skin clay with our weird alphas, and we're trying some cool stuff to get some different effects here. And then we're like, I changed my mind. So all I got to do is get thick skin down to 0, and then I'll go ahead and just sweep back through. And then you can go through here and try some more stuff. Cool. IMM curve brushes, what's the process for converting to a game res? When I use IMM curve brushes on a long curve, it ends up being around 15K active points quite quickly. You might need, what you could do, this is kind of hacky, but when you make your curve brushes that have a lot of detail on them, like let's say, let's do this. This will be fun. This will be a fun test. Let's see if we can even do this. Let's go in here to our cylinder. Because you're right. Like, here's the thing too is, oh, okay, we can do this too. Like, let's say you wanted to do like a bike chain. Oh, we already have a bike chain. Perfect. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to get rid of this movie. I don't need to see that. Second of all, I'm going to get a drink. Third of all, I'm going to go down here to initialize. Nope. I'm going to go up here to make Polymesh 3D. And then we're going to, actually, here's what I want to do. Let's just hit W, BI brush insert military curve, M, or just hit bike chain. And then I'm going to just go in here to deformation unify. So here is the repeating bike chain. So this is how you can kind of steal. There's a couple different ways you can do this, but one way to steal that right out of there. So I can make this an IMM brush. Now, this is a pretty complex. And if I'm like, well, you know, I'm going to go through here and let's do this be army curve here with a bike chain. You're going to drag this out. And all of a sudden you have 10,000 polygons along this bike chain. I was like, oh, I want a game res. Well, if this is going to be seen like in game like this, then yeah, that should probably, you should probably just bake that off to a repeating texture, this on a strip. So it'd be like a strip texture where on your texture, here's your 0 to 1, you're going to have this bike chain repeating like off the edge. And then no matter how long you pull that strip in the X or Y direction, or U and V direction, I should say, it'll just keep repeating that bike chain. So really you'll just have a polygon strip that's going to repeat that bike chain texture. That's how you would do that super performant in an engine. However, another thing you can consider is while you're doing this, you can go ahead and be making your game res. Now, this is not going to be the best example for a bike chain maybe, but let's give it a shot. So let's do, I think the best way to do this. Let's say duplicate this off. I'm going to go down here to initialize Q cube. Let's go to solo mode. I'm going to scale this up. And we're going to say, and again, bike chain may not be the best example of this, but you know, sue me. So we're going to go through here and we're going to make our game res here. Let's turn on polyframe here. So there we go. We have our game res ready to go. So I'm going to take these middle polygons here. We're going to say geometry modified topology, delete hidden. Let's go through here. We'll say insert single edge loop. We don't need these extraneous loops here. And let's say, yeah, let's do this. This will give us nice even. So we'll say insert single edge loop, and then we're going to say insert multiple edge loops, and we're just going to pull these through here. And we'll hit Control W, and I guess we can go ahead and cap these off as well. So you know what? Let's just do this. Close holes. Oh, silly. Insert single edge loop or multiple edge loops. There we go. Close holes, and then delete edge with your Z modeler brush here. Now we'll make this a tripart curve brush. We're going to say Control Shift, Control W, Control Shift, Control W. I don't like that white. There we go. So here's our tripart brush. It's going to be our game res, and this is going to be a repeating middle. So while we're dragging out this bike cylinder, we can also be dragging out our game res. So we can go through here, and again, this bike chain is a bad example. I wouldn't do this. I would have this, again, depending on where you see it, this isn't going to bake that well because it's got a bunch of holes in it and it's got a bunch of edges that go straight back. But bear with me. This is one way you could kind of do this. So, and that's going to, oh, but that's going to be a repeating middle. This is a bad example because basically this is a tripart curve brush, but we need this to coincide with another tripart curve brush that's going to have a repeating middle. I mean, I guess at that point, the game res actually would be insert. It would be this. So if you don't have a repeating middle, one thing we can do is we can say, okay, every bike chain is going to have this as its geometry, as its game res geometry. So let's go ahead and merge these down. So Control W and then say merge. Control E. So we have our game res and our bike chain. We're going to hit B, create insert mesh, new. So we can go through here and we can start. This is our IMM brush. However, we want to go in here to stroke, and we want to say turn on curve mode, and then underneath our brush, let's go ahead and hit R here. We want to do modifiers, triparts. We don't want that on. So now as we're pulling this out again, we can even go through here and we can try to do like a weld points. I don't think it's going to do anything disastrous to our bike chain. So now we have a bike chain, and while we're dragging out that bike chain, it's dragging out our game res geometry. So if we tap off of here and we say split mask points, go into solo mode, and then hit Control Shift, and then we say get rid of that. There's our game res. There's our bike chain. Let's go ahead and split these off. So now let's go ahead and also turn off our A. Is a small thing, so our AO is kind of working overtime here. Turn off polyframe. There we go. There's our bike chain. There's our game res. So if you have a hose or something like that, that might be an easy way as you're dragging out your IMM brushes to go ahead and be also creating your game res meshes. I don't know if this is going to bake correctly. Let me think. I mean, I can... Well, here's the other thing too. This thing doesn't have UVs. So you would go through there and just strip these out. You can use like Hedis or whatever to boink, boink, click, click, flatten, flatten, all that stuff. Yeah, so you would need UVs, and then you would need to bake that result off in, you know, Marmoset or Substance Designer, or you could do it in ZBrush too, but to get straight and flatten UVs in ZBrush might be a little bit difficult on this model. Cool. Topology brush, can you actually move the endpoint of a curve painted on the surface, just a curve anyhow after it's drawn? I want to say yes, but I'm really not that sure. So BTO. And then this is going to keep drawing. If we switch to brush curve multiple, yeah, kinda. That's kind of a neat trick. Hey, everybody, if you want to do a lattice, you can use topology brush and then replace those curves with whatever you want. Let me think. Yeah, I want to say there is a way to do that, but and I think it has something to do with that curve multiple brush, but I'm not exactly sure what that is off the top of my head. How can I disable Alt, mouse, and drag zoom in and out hotkeys? I have no idea. You can use right-click navigation, but yeah, I think the Alt zoom, I'm not sure. Oh, so you'd use like plus and minus? Yikes. That's gotta be, that's a lot of hand movement. I would constantly be like down there. Huh, yeah. To each their own. I'm not really sure how to do that. Cool. Yeah, and like Ace is saying, oops. Control right click is going to be the Alt navigation, so you can use that to zoom instead, but panning might be trickier. Panning, you're going to need that. So anyway, let's go ahead and clear our scene out. In fact, we can go here to Polymesh and we can say, I think there's a macro in here. Let's see if this does it all. Delete unselected tools. Boing. There we go. Clean this all out. So 7:30. Okay, while we have this, let's do something fun real quick. Let's go down here to intro, sample files. Not that this hasn't been fun. And then we're gonna go to our, we were talking about this one. Let's see if this guy's set up for anything worthwhile. This might be interesting. It's gonna have, it might be a little tricky because it's got some things that can be subsurface scattering and whatnot. But let's do this. Let's see if we can go down here to draw. Let's turn on polyframe. You know what? I'm just going to take it as is. However this thing renders is going to be fine. So let's go ahead up here. Let's hit Control N. Let's go in here to Document. Turn off Proportional. Say 800 by 800. Hit Enter. We'll go ahead and resize our doc. Go through here. And we can just paint our masks manually. It's not a big deal. I'm partial, because I'm old school, to go in here to Document, Zaplink Properties, and just store a custom one. So then I'm going to go over here to our Z plugin, ZCompositor, and we're going to throw this over into Substance real quick. And we'll play around with a little bit of renders. There's a lot of subtools on here, so it might take us a while. Actually, this might have been a bad choice, but we'll see how it goes. More information on this. I think it'll continue to be fine. So you're going to see this no demos look dev. So this is something you can do. It's really cool. Any 3D model, you can just send it over. And again, you could do all of this manually. The series on YouTube or right here goes through this entire process of how to set up manual planes or how to use just the button. The button click is really useful. You had to be square on your plane. We just make your document square, essentially, is all we needed to do. But yeah, this one, and this is just kind of for look dev. And if you want to, you can throw it in the Substance Painter and just literally, you don't have to worry about like, oh, do I low res this and then bake it to my low res and UVs and then take it in here, and do I do my namespaces so I don't get baking errors, all that stuff. This is literally just very quick look dev here. So yeah, both of these here will take you through that process here. And again, it's painting with that just material. Then again, you can add height, you can do dirt maps, you can use smart materials, the ID mask, all of that stuff is the exact same. You just don't need to worry about, so that's how I made this guy, was just taking in the 3D model, and then you can do stylized lighting, stylized rendering, stylized materials if you want. And again, this one might have been a poor choice because it is a very complex one. It's not really set up for this necessarily, but we'll see how it does. Another cool thing too is if you're ever looking for like, oh, how do I get a curvature map out of ZBrush? This is actually stored. I'll show you where that is. Let's see, startup, Zplug 64, and it is called ZCompositor details. So if you install this, and that's like video number 1 of the series, Z Startup, Zplug 64, ZBrush Compositor data, there's a bunch of Z materials in here. So there's your cavity Z material, here's your normal RGB, which is actually in ZBrush already, tangent space normal, or your world space normal, flat color, normal, anything else cool in here. Anyway, that's where you can find some of those. Oh, I probably would have been a little bit faster if I turned off polyframe as well. Hopefully that didn't mess up the render, now that I think about it. Let this load up real quick. Can you guys see that? Make sure it's centered on my screen here. There we go. Let's go ahead and refresh. And luckily, we don't need the Polypaint. Yeah, we don't need the textures and colors. Did this opacity, alpha, displacement, shadows? Damn. I guess don't have Polypaint turned on. Let's also do, or don't have a polyframe turned on. Ah, that sucks. Let's do something that's going to be a little bit faster. Actually, I can probably make this faster if I go over here to Subtool, Merge Visible. turn off polyframe. These I'm not going to worry about. You know, I can make those smoother or not. I'm just, for demonstration purposes, let's do this real quick. Sorry, I totally forgot I had. Let's close that as well. There we go. And again, this will be a lot faster. There's the cavity material, the normal material, ID material. There we go. See how much faster that was? So if you're going to do that, this might be an alternative. Just make sure your tubes and stuff are the correct refresh. There we go. So here's our 3D model. So we have, you know, shadows and stuff like this. So we can go over here to our display properties and we can turn on shadows. So now our model will actually cast shadows here, and we can even use our Polypaint if we want. However, it's not real. It's just projected to a plane. If we go over here to our wireframe, really it's just a plane with displacement on there. And the reason that's displacement's cool is because, again, it's going to allow that geometry to cast a real-time shadow. You can also use this in iRay and stuff like that too. However, you are going to run into some limitations. Actually, iRay, I don't know. This is much more forgiving when you get into like subsurface scattering, which you can go over here. If we go in here to project, it's baking all these maps out. So another thing too, if we go back into ZBrush and you wanted to see, you know, all of these maps that it's putting in there. Again, the series is going to go much more in depth on this, but if we go in here to render passes, you know, here's your depth, which is your displacement map, and then your AO and SSS, and your SSS is your thickness map in Painter. So all of that stuff is just turned on in here and rendered out. And as far as those materials go, if we go in here to our materials here, let's just grab one we're not going to use, and we're going to go in here to load material. We can go in here to, did I not just have it? There it is. ZCompositor data, and we just grab like our cavity substance material. So here we go. And we're going to go in here to render properties, make sure shadows is turned off, and then we can just hit BPR. And there's our cavity. And it just captures this and it sends it right on out. So again, you can do all of this manually, and I think we go over the entire manual process, but that way you have very quick access. So in here, and our ID map might be a little iffy. You could go through and do a manual ID map, but it should be okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to materials or smart materials, and we can just start putting stuff on there. So if I go through here and we do like, let me see, like a steel medieval stylized, we'll go ahead and throw this on top of here, and then mask with color selection, pick here, and then just start plopping these in where I want them to go. That's actually probably fine. And then we can go through here and we can change all this stuff. So actually, let's go ahead and get rid of like this one. Roughness, dirt. Boy, this mask builder is intense. It doesn't seem to be taking much of anything. Another thing too to keep in mind is you can assign skin to this and have the Polypaint come through. We do go through that on the series. I don't know if we go through that on YouTube actually, now that I think about it. We touch a little bit on subsurface scattering, but not that much. But anyway, it's super easy just to even go through here and say, you know what, this is going to be, again, if you're painting with actual materials here, we'll call this paint, and we'll go ahead and make this red. And we'll go ahead and say, you know, underneath all this paint, we want a steel. So we're just going to back to our materials here. Steel rough should be fine. Actually, probably just drag that over to our layer. That's all right. And we're going to go through here and we're going to say, you know what, let's group both these together. And we're going to say where this is going to go. So we're going to right click this and we're going to say mask with color selection. Go ahead and pick our color. We want it to go here and here. Now this is where you want to go through and like assign an actual color, so you don't have to go through here with your tolerances and mess with any of that, but this is okay. And then for this paint here, we're going to say add a quick, oops. Black mask, add a generator. We're just going to wear those edges down a little bit. And we're going to invert this. So now as I go through here, I can just change that wear level. So again, we can go through here and do look dev very quickly without having to worry too much about, you know, much of anything. And like I said before, you can take this right into iRay. And again, you'll have limitations if you're trying to do like transparent or translucent materials. But for the most part, you know, should work fine. So yeah, go through here and rubber or cloth, and rubber's easy enough just to kind of go through here. You can just say rubber, dial in the material properties. So we want it to be a dark gray, not that shiny. So we'll go down here to roughness and we'll crank that up a little bit. And then of course, if you want it metallic, all you got to do is just make it metal or not. In this case, not. So you can always go back through here and let's say do a color selection. We'll go ahead and pick our rubber areas here. And then again, if we want to make any changes, go back to that layer and then we can just dial in how shiny you want that rubber to be. Painted metal, rubber, mask here. Pick you and you and you. And then for our actual Polypaint here, let's go ahead and we can add some sort of scattering to this. And this is a, let's make this a fill layer. So I'm going to say, give me a fill. And on this fill layer, we'll go back to our project here and we'll add our albedo into that base color of that fill. So I have a little bit more control over this. So on top of this, I can add a filter and then we can say like a hue saturation lightness, or you can even add a levels on top of here. Just make sure on this levels you have it set to base color, which it should be by default. So now I can go through here and just change that on the fly. So we can kind of crank that up a little bit, get a little bit more contrast there. And then if we do want to actually add, hold on just a second here. This HSL, I mean, the HSL is cool and all. You can actually use this to dial in. You can use gradients too, but this, if you wanted to make an overall hue shift change to the creature, that's where you can do that. But here, we got that. And like I said before, if we want to go through and do our texture set settings, we're going to need to do a transmissive channel. And then in our display, I think we're going to need to turn on activate subsurface scattering. And now this does have an alpha. So when we go through here, we're going to have to do alpha blending test here to get both subsurface scattering and alpha blending to show up. And then subsurface scattering is enabled. Translucent and skin. Here we can go ahead and crank that up. Oh, and then we actually need to have this show up. So we need to go back to our layers. Nothing has translucency on it yet. So you know what, we can just make a fill layer here. And we can say, I can turn off everything except for our translucency, our transmissive color. We can just choose white for that. And let's see here. Here and here and here, although it's not a translucency map, is it? It's a scatter map, dummy. Texture set settings, not transmissive map. We need a scattering map. There we go. So now we go back to our layer, turn on scattering. We'll crank this up. There we go. So now we're getting our scattering applied to our skin. Now it's going on everything, which we don't want. So we can say maybe add a mask with color selection. Oh, but you know what? That's going to be our, oh, there we go. Perfect. So now it's just going to be in that skin area. Of course, this is just an overall translucency for just that skin area. However, you can go in here and you can add your thickness map to that scattering. So that'll control that. So you can dial that in. Anyway, and yeah, and you can throw this into Marmoset if you want to from here, or you can go straight into Marmoset and you can start texturing with Marmoset, because you now do have texturing capabilities in Marmoset. So this is where we're actually using the new Marmoset layer materials stuff to kind of do that. Yeah, and you can actually take all this into Photoshop as well. In fact, I have a few of those files I think we can click through, where you can take your Substance Painter and Substance, or in Marmoset, and Keyshot or iRay, all those renders you can bring in here. And let's see, compositing. So this one had a couple different ones. So this was, again, just the exact same process we had, but then through here, here's the Marmoset render on the flat plane, and then here's it's like, you know what, I like the Substance skin more, but I like the Marmoset metal, and then the eyes, and then the AO, a couple different AO passes, just kind of breaking that up so I can have different AO on the skin and the head, and then merging, and then that little bloom, lens blur. There's my ID map, a lot simpler, but you can see very quickly you can get a rendered image without having to go through the hassle of doing that. Cool. What do you think about Marmoset versus Sketchfab? They're both good. Nothing wrong with them. Speaking of, let's go ahead and do, I'm trying to think of the best way, the fastest way to get this set up. Let's go back into ZBrush here. We'll go ahead and say startup material. Yeah, we got time. Document, go ahead and snap back here. And let's do that. Let's try Z plugin here. Let's send this over to Toolbag real quick. Trying to think. If there's any catches. Cool. So now this one, we're going to have to go in here to our main camera, and I'm going to go to transform here, and we're just going to zero out our rotations. So we're kind of looking just right at it. Now this, oh, and also another thing we need to do is take our perspective down to orthographic. So here we are in Marmoset, and again, zero it out. So one thing, we can still use the exact same things in here. So if we go into our sky and then we say, you know what, let's, oh, here's another thing too. So Marmoset 4, we can go through here, and if I hit presets, I have my library already docked down here. So we have this not in here, and then you go through and you go to your presets, it'll go ahead and bring up your library, already set the skies. I'm gonna go ahead and dock this down here. So we can go through here, we can, if you see a little cloud, you just double click it and then double click it again, and then I'll go ahead and use that to light your scene. Of course, through here, let's go ahead and take this alleyway here. That's a bit much. Let's do this one. You know, he's going here and, like, you know, set a child light here. There's your skylight. We'll go ahead and crank up that brightness here. So now, there we go. However, this displacement plane, not that great. We're going to go down here to plane, and then turn on subdivision levels, unlock it first, and then we'll turn on subdivide, and then we'll subdivide this up a couple times just to get a little bit better results here. So here, we're in Marmoset. Let's go in here to the texture tab. And then because this, just like we were doing earlier, we can add a texture project, and now we can just start creating textures on here. Let's go back to our scene here. Let's go back to our skylight. Let's take that brightness down on that child light just a tad. There you go. So back to our texture project. So we have a fill layer here, and on this fill layer, we can just start dialing in. You know, if we want to do like the red painted metal here, we can, or we can just start dropping in materials. Oh, one thing I forgot to do, again, I haven't done this a ton, is the texture project, the material has to be linked, and we don't have any thing linked in here. So we're going to go back to our materials. I'm going to drag this here, and I'm going to link this. Then we need to start populating this. Luckily, I know where these maps are. Data is the plugin data, compositor data. So here's all of our normal opacity, shadow maps, all that good stuff. So really quickly, I'm going to just go ahead and populate our curvature map, our normal map, our normal object, which is our world space, material ID, and ambient occlusion. This is where you can also add more maps if you need them. But in our case, I don't think we will for just this. So now we have, this is all linked now. So now we have, okay, fill layer, and you can go through here and, where is that at? It's under adjustment. So we're going to say add a mask. Here's your little mask here. You can just right click again, and we can say add a fill mask with black. And then on here, we can say, oops, we want to do a color selection here. Actually, we can probably just delete this one. Sorry, I'm a little bit clunky in here, but here's where we can add a new color selection. We can go through here and just kind of pick where we want this to go. So here, we want this to be painted, and then here, oops. So now we've got this, and then this is where we can dial in our thresholds here. So there's our painted. Then under here, let's go ahead and go to our smart materials. So this is, again, smart materials, just like what you would think. And then also here under materials are some really cool ones. We were playing around with, God, there's shingles and strata stuff and wet clay, dirt, all that stuff. Let's just do this. Yeah, this is a fun one. So paint crack, we can just literally drag this onto whatever section you want. It'll go ahead and isolate it just to there. And then this is all the material properties you can play with. So here's like the tiling you can do, and rotation of that material on your object here. You can do UV or triplanar. Go ahead and tile this down if we want to. And you know what? We can even just go through here and we can actually delete that. So now this whole thing has painted, cracked paint all over it. Oh, that's another thing too I forgot to change, is we're just working at 4096. We don't have to. We can do 2048 is probably plenty. So here's that tiling painted material, and then here's all your material properties. So if you want to go through here and be like, you know what, I wanted like more of an orangey painted metal, you can go through here and do that, or maybe just a little bit warmer here. And then all of these also have contrast, so you can go through here and you can dial in contrast in your roughness, change the overall roughness. You want to shinier, more matte, you can see it updating here on the fly. Let's go back to our skylight here. All that good stuff. So anyway, we'll go back to our texture project here, and again, you can just literally just drag and drop these things, put them wherever you want to go, dial in and out the ancient ceramic. That sounds cool. Oh, double click them if it's a cloud. So this is where you can filter by, like, here's Marmoset, here's user created the way you've done, and then here's local. So these are all the ones I've downloaded, and then these are all the ones that are still in the cloud. And if no filter's on, everything's going to show up. So I forgot what we were playing with here. Cardboard. That should be a cool one. Let's go ahead and download all these. Throw some corrugated cardboard on here. Play around with tiling here. Again, you have shadows, you have light, you have masks, all that good stuff. So anyway, got a couple minutes left. How about the video showing how to restrict the masking based off of concave and convex Yeah, that should be. That's a. Let me show you. So that was our. Let me see. Let me do this. Cylinder, edit, make Polymesh 3D, turn off perspective. Let's go ahead and take our document. W size new. Control N here. And then again, crease, dynamic, apply, duplicate, W, scale down, move up, Boolean, subtractive. Cool. And then we'll go ahead and say, you know what, let's Dynamesh this here. And then we'll merge it down, control drag. Oh, come on. Fine, I'll do it manually. Let's go down here to polygroups, group as Dynamesh sub. Is this Dynamesh on? There we go. So we've got this mesh here, and we want to use masking here. So we'll go in here to mask pin. So masking by pin is just going to mask literally what's on your screen. Under your brush settings, however, we can do depth. And then in here, turn on depth mask and just pull this top one down, not all the way to 0, but to a very low value. And then this one, not all the way to 0, but a very low value. And now, depending on where you start, it should stop. Oh, we did that with our standard brush. Hold down Control, turn on depth mask. And again, not all the way to 0, but a very small value. Now when you mask, it should stop when it senses an edge. You can also use backface masking. So if you hold down Control, go in here to auto masking and turn on backface masking as well. If you don't see it, it won't mask it. So if you go over here, it's like it'll stop right there. But also you can use that depth masking to make it stop on that edge, or if you're painting in here, it'll stop on that edge. Or if you want to go down the middle, it'll stop on those edges. So just one brush there that'll allow you to kind of just, depending on where you start, it'll just mask on the top or here, or just mask on the bottom. It'll kind of stop you when it senses those edges. And that's all one brush. So if you want to go ahead and hold down Control and say brush save as, we can throw that into our Z startup brush presets. And you're going to see a mask depth is already saved in there. You can save it right in there. And then when you restart ZBrush, when you hit B, M, you're going to have a mask depth brush. And again, when you hold down Control, that'll be right there. So you can just load that mask depth in, and then again, it'll stop. If you want to just kind of mask here, it'll stop right along those edges. If you want to mask the inside, it'll stop along that edge. Or if you want to mask just the inside of here. This one, you might want to make your brush size a little smaller so to contain it a little bit easier. But you can literally just go through here and just start masking where it'll sense your edges here. ZBrush Compositor can handle decimated version, also very high poly. Yeah, all it's literally doing is taking a bunch of renders. Doesn't matter how many polygons it is. Cool. All right, everybody. We can start wrapping it up. Thanks for showing up. Happy New Year 2021. Is that what year it is? And wishing you the best. I'm going to try to stream on my channel Thursday. So any follow-up stuff, we can do it on my channel. Have fun. Take it easy. Thanks, everybody. And catch you on the flip side.